Team Malizia first, Team Holcim-PRB second, with 11th Hour Racing Team and Biotherm in third and fourth. Let's take a look at what made the difference in those final few days of leg 3. As the dust settles from the racing, now that our 4 boats are safely into the harbour in Itajaí, cheered on by the Brazilian crowds, as well as being welcomed by the crew of Guyot Environment Team Europe, who've delivered the boat to Brazil after retiring earlier in the leg, we can see that what really made the difference in those final few days of this leg was a combination of playing the long game, luck, fatigue, perseverance, and of course sailing skill. Let me talk you through what I mean, starting with the victors, Team Malizia.
The sailing couldn't be more epic than this. We have seen so much different conditions and big waves, lots of wind, and our boat is made for these conditions, and it was such a pleasure to sail this.
It's been the adventure of a lifetime, I'd say. You know, rounding Cape Horn, sailing for 40 days, 12,000 miles, and you know, it's about overcoming and kind of always believing. You know, that's what was so strong about the team. We always kept believing, we always kept having a positive spirit about things, and by doing that all the way to the finish, you know, that's why we're here in first place, I think.
Those words could explain everything about this victory. Firstly, Rosie mentioned that their boat was built for these conditions. We've talked many times before about the way that the shape of Team Malizia's hull has let this team sail differently and push harder without the same risk of nosediving as the others. It's not the total story. They've had to still find a way to turn that advantage into miles gained. But for this leg, these conditions, the decision that they made to shape their boat for these waves has paid off. But despite this smart decision, winning did not come easily to them. And this is where luck comes in. The German team were the first of our boats to suffer a big breakage at sea when the top of their mast ripped open. We can all remember how bad this moment looked at the time and how close the team were to retiring from the leg rather than risk losing the mast completely and perhaps even abandoning the boat. But this is where their fortunes turned and they were delivered good luck right after the bad. Their mast issue was early in the leg, and while it took a mammoth effort from the crew to fix the problem, they had the energy to do it, having only been at sea for a comparatively short time. And probably bigger fortune came with the weather. Right after the damage, the wind died, and this opened the perfect opportunity to do a full repair in the best conditions possible. Although even in light winds, climbing the mast is never easy at sea. That's what I mean about luck, both good and bad, being a factor into how much hard work the sailors are going to have to put into each and every moment to perform at their best. But what about the boat that seemed to start this leg with all the good fortune as well as some incredible sailing skill? Team Holcim-PRB. By day 5 of leg 3, this boat had an incredible lead, 600 miles of it, but not all of that was due to their impressive speed. They pulled ahead and the weather stretched it further as they rode an east-going weather system as the others were stuck in nothing. That's good luck with the weather, taking your hard-earned 100-mile lead and turning it into something huge. But then the weather decides to change its mind and brings all the other boats back into the game later on in the leg. So let's skip to the moment where I think Team Holcim-PRB lost this race into Itajaí, the final 24 hours. That final drama played out in big breeze and saw a series of broaches, knockdowns, where the boat was pinned over on its side and the sailors wrestling to fight back control. It took 3 crew members to pull the tiller arm up to windward to force the rudder over as they found grip again, and finally the boat could level out back on a run. One of the head sails was fouled during the broach, and so it was furled and brought down the forward hatch to save time. But this added lots of loose weight to the boat in the form of over 100 litres of water now sloshing around the bilge. For me, this is when another factor starts to appear: fatigue. After a very long leg, for a team that has spent more time in the windy weather than some, gaining miles but draining energy. Now, in that final push to the finish line, a small mistake in their sailing skill is exposed by a broach. It's completely understandable, but it's heartbreaking that it kept happening. Another broach, another recovery, but this time the autopilot able to hold the tiller across and bring the boat down to a run, but not react with the speed that's needed, and steering straight past the correct course into a jibe, snapping 2 battens in the mainsail as it was flung against the runners still loaded on the other side. At this stage, the racing was neck and neck with Team Malizia. Team Holcim-PRB was having to sail slow and lose critical distance. Was this a team who ran out of concentration and energy just before the finish? Or did their electronic system on board succumb to the relentless nature of leg 3 and start feeding their autopilot bad data, causing the wipeouts? Or was it just bad luck for a boat that had set the pace for so much of this race? But whatever the reason, after 14,000 miles of incredible competition, this was the moment, with Team Malizia putting them under so much pressure that the boat could fight for the lead no more. Meanwhile, as Team Malizia and Team Holcim-PRB were securing their points, behind them 11th Hour Racing Team and Biotherm were neck and neck, fighting for 3rd and 4th.
Locked in a battle with Biotherm here. We got 350 miles to the finish and we're basically bow even. But there's another race going on as well, which is the race for our yard period. So at this point we got 35 days of jobs list, let's call it, that's accumulated over the course of this leg, and we got to be prepared when we hit the dock.
The sailors were doing well to put the stress of the last month behind them, as well as being pragmatic about the repairs that they needed to do in Brazil and giving themselves the maximum time to prep for that work. But as we saw with Team Holcim-PRB, just when you think that the drama of this leg is behind you, 11th Hour Racing Team found themselves on their side with some serious issues. A gust of over 50 knots knocked the boat flat and the sailors were left fighting to regain control. Unable to depower the main anymore due to the amount of heel, Charlie Enright was left wrestling with the rudder to find any grip to turn the boat. The best method was to pump the tiller, allowing the boat a split second of freedom to accelerate before using that speed to try and bear away. This kept the rudder from stalling out, but it took plenty of strength to pull it off. Now, you may have noticed that the Imoca doesn't have many gears to go slowly. It doesn't have a lot of ways to come off the pace if you're finding it all a little bit too risky. The boat simply plows on until something breaks. And so, in the final push to the finish line, the American team's mainsail gave way. A hole large enough to walk through opened up on the leach of the sail. A massive job to fix, and something that was greeted by stunned silence on board.
I think we drop it, we have a long conversation. Okay.
Nice clear phones, and when you're dripping down, someone just give me the thumbs up and I'll let it down. And then you might get it down.
It would be easy at this point to drop the main, leave it down, sail to the finish line at whatever speed is possible under just the head sails, and be happy you tried your best. But it's never possible for our sailors to give up without trying every possible option first. They stole webbing from their sail bags, hours of stitching and gluing, using the very last of their sailcloth patches, but they managed to get the mainsail back in the air and working again. Hours of hard work, and potentially all for nothing. Sailing with or without a mainsail in 4th place into Itajaí wouldn't have changed your points one bit. But our sailors always push on, and that's why I think that perseverance has been such a key feature of these final few moments into that finish line in Brazil for all of our teams. Our sailors know that it's their performance they can affect, not what happens with their rivals.
Have to remember, our happiness as a team
Does not relate to skids. Has to do with bonding together.
So was Biotherm going to take advantage of this drop in 11th Hour Racing Team speed? Well, unfortunately for them, they were another team that was suffering on this final push into the finish line. A broken sheet on the head sail, then the gremlins and their electronics were traced to a faulty wand at the top of the mast, so Paul Meyer had to climb up and replace the unit for a spare. Add in more broken sheets, tricky winds, this team have been forced off the pace in the very last few days of this leg. But the main reason I think they lost out to 11th Hour Racing Team in this final push to the finish was for something much more serious, and serious enough that it might cause problems for future legs as well. Big damage to their foil.
So yeah, yesterday evening we hit something on the port foil with a big noise of crack of composite crack. So we flared the sail to look at the issue, and we saw that the external layer of the foil was broken, and on the bearing it was also many failure on the lower bearing.
On all our boats, the foils sit in a watertight box, wet on the inside, but it acts as a barrier to that water getting inside the hull. Now, for Biotherm, the boat was leaking. This all left Biotherm with no opportunity to sail at full speed, and even with Charlie Enright and his crew suffering so many issues, Paul Meyer could not find the opportunity to attack, sailing into Itajaí in 4th place on leg 3, but happy to finish a leg which at one point or another had brought so many of our teams close to retiring.
When I started my project about this ocean race, I knew that the key point was to be here in Itajaí with the boat in good shape. And probably the boat is not in good shape, but we are here. And now there is a lot of point to give. We are not at the half of the race if you just take the point. So it's not finished sportively. So I will say, yeah, one part of the objective is okay. And I want to thank you all the short team, technical team, because they did an amazing job. Because it's really hard. I think people can't imagine how difficult is it to success to run the world with an IMOCA just 6 months. 6 months ago we launched the boat, so it's crazy.
Of course, Paul Meyer's right. There's so much left to go. We are only 45% of the way through the points. Plenty of chances for another team to take that top spot. While Team Malizia won the leg, they add the same amount to their overall score as Team Holcim-PRB, each boat taking it in turns past the scoring gate and then the finish line. Kevin Escoffier is still on top, but no longer the only boat to win a leg. Of course, fans of Team Holcim-PRB still have plenty to be confident about, but now we know that Kevin Escoffier, his sailors and this boat can and have been beaten out on the water. All of our 5 teams are in Brazil preparing the boats for the next leg, and I'm going to head out to Itajaí in the next couple of days, and this is where I need your input. What is it that you need answers to? Let us know either in the comments below this video or email us. questions@theoceanrace.com. It could be something small but important to the overall scores. It could be something large but frivolous. Whatever it might be, let us know. So when I'm out there in Brazil, I can try and get answers from the people who know, the sailors themselves. We'll see you soon.